Taken with a Grain of Salt, a collection of short stories by Jason Salthouse. Gorton's Fisherman. He stood at the foot of the bed, still, silent, just staring. He was wearing an old, beaten-down yellow raincoat and hat, I imagine kind of like the fisherman from those old fish stick commercials. He would appear, suddenly, as you slipped off into that place between sleep and wakefulness. I never could see this man. But from time to time, he would venture into the room next to my mother's and stand over the foot of my little brother's bed. The figure of the old fisherman never spoke. He never made a sound from what I've been told. Maybe he couldn't speak. Maybe he tried, but they couldn't understand. All I know for certain is that he would visit us again and again, silent through all the years of late nights, early mornings, and all the times you felt like you were being watched, but no one was there. I never could see this man. A few years passed, and my little brother got older and made new friends. From time to time, my mom would joke about the fisherman with my brother and me, but it felt like she was trying to reassure us and herself that it was silly or made up, or all from the wild imagination of a child and a sleep-deprived single parent. Another year or so went by, and my brother had some friends over for the night, a standard sleepover, you could say. Just one random weekend, one random evening, late into the night, way after the pizza and the soda and long after the rented movies were over. The ones who couldn't make it as long were all zipped up in the comforts of the makeshift beds spread around the room. If you were lucky and quick, you called a spot on the couch, but those were very hard to come by, and once they were claimed, there would be no chance of anyone giving up their spot. One of my little brother's friends had claimed the main spot on the main couch in the main room, front and center to the whole thing. It was the first spot everyone claimed and the last one to be given up. Towards the wee hours of that late night, leading into the early morning hours of whatever day it was supposed to be next, my brother and the friend, still stubborn enough to be awake, were talking. The friend had moved from his coveted sleeping spot. Either my brother had sat there while it was vacant and decided to establish last-minute dominance, or his friend needed a change of scenery from the hours spent making sure his territory was free from intruders. Neither of them had ever spoke about the strange fisherman that had been a frequent visitor of my family over the years, but that would soon change. I wasn't there, but what I was told next would haunt me for as long as I can remember it. He was just there, all of a sudden, out of thin air, standing just behind my brother off to the side a bit. No entry, no sound, no movement, except the slow turning of his head as he leaned in to get a closer look at my brother's complexion. An inch, maybe 3, close enough to feel someone's breath on your cheek. That's assuming that someone is real and physically able to breathe. The fisherman was not. My brother quickly noticed his friend looking different, scared, beyond scared. His skin had turned a lighter shade and he was visibly shaken, his eyes so wide, trying to take in all the unbelievable information they were getting. I imagine it exactly the way it's always described when talking about seeing ghosts. My brother listened to his friend whisper from across the room. He was there all of a sudden, stared right at you, then turned and walked down the hallway. Like being struck by lightning, it was immediate. My brother knew exactly who his friend was talking about. An understanding, the feeling you get when you really understand what a person is trying to explain, kind of like you always knew and you can't believe another person understands it in such detail. It's typically unspoken, sometimes it's said. Either way, it's all anticlimactic in a way, bad form. There was no blood, there was no slasher knife, no blood-curdling screams, no big scary monster dragging you away to the depths of a fiery pit to feed on your flesh while you wail in agony from being eaten alive. It's probably pretty boring compared to the Pinheads, the Leatherfaces, the Freddy Kruegers, the Chucky dolls, and the people under the stairs, but it happened. For some reason, the fisherman stopped visiting us, and after all this time, I still never did see this man. After a week or two, it wasn't talked about much anymore, and after a few years, it was totally forgotten from what I can gather. I don't think my brother and his friend ever even discussed it with the other guys at the sleepover that night. I've asked to hear the story again from the people who remember, but this is the clearest memory I can find. Hopefully, it's a telling of a classic story of a ghost, but to me, it's always been a reminder to take an extra look around the corner. Not to dismiss that random sound you hear at 3 a.m., or the shadow you see move out of the corner and across the room. It's possible it's all real, and there's something happening all around us that we can't comprehend. Maybe. Possibly. It's also possible this is a reminder or an eye-opening moment that some things, some adventures, and some stories should be taken with a grain of salt.